interesting happened yesterday, and I want to tell about it. Day before yesterday, Brian came home and said, "Do you want to go to a ball game tomorrow?" And I really did not want to go to a ball game, but I wanted to respond to Prakriti, to Mother Nature, in the way that she wants to be responded to. So I didn't say no. I just wanted to see what it was about. So instead of saying yes or no, because I didn't want to say no, and I also didn't want to say yes yet, so I started asking questions about the ball game. So I didn't answer, but I asked questions, made conversation, kept the ball rolling, so to speak. So then that conversation was finished and I forgot about it. Then yesterday, Brian came home early and again he asked, "Do you want to go to the ball game?" So I thought about it, then I thought, well, why not? If this was if he's going to remember again to ask me, and this is what's up, then probably I should go. So what happened then? Okay, then he was just saying, "Okay, do you want to go?" Or we were discussing what time it was and stuff. Anyway, so then he was saying, well, I have to go early because I want to find a parking place. And then I said, well, we could take our bicycles. This is really interesting. This person is actually totally living what I'm trying to do. Unconsciously, he is always responding to Prakriti the way she wants to be responded to. Almost always. Many, many, many times. But completely without being conscious of it, I think. I'm not sure, but I really think that he's not conscious of this, that this is what he's doing. So then I said to him, well, we could take our bicycles. And after that, he made it clear to me, or he was totally, like, without saying it's up to you, he was completely waiting on me to decide whether we were going to go in the car or on our bicycles. Which is astonishing for me. Because this is a person, it's his car, it's his money, it's his idea, but he's waiting for me to decide. So I was saying something to him, like, what do you want to do? He said, no, it's up to you. What you want to do, that's what we'll do. Unbelievable. So finally, at the end, I just said, okay, I feel more comfortable going in the car. Spontaneously, I felt go in the car. My mind was telling me, go on bicycles, and then if you really don't like what's going on, you can leave. Okay? And I also asked him, does it cost any money? Or is it free? He said, yes, it's free. As it turns out, when we got there, it was free for him, but he had to pay for my ticket. And I didn't get to him in time to say, don't pay for a ticket, I'm going to go and sit in the library because I have work to do there. And I'm really not interested in the game if you have to pay the ticket. And I didn't understand, by the time I understood what was going on, he had purchased my ticket. And I was like, oh my God, Brian, he purchased my ticket. And he said, well, I didn't say it was free, I said it was free for you. In other words, Prakriti wanted me to be at that ball game. And I was stuck. Really, I was stuck because I didn't have any way to get back home. And Brian had paid for my ticket, $9. And so I had to stay there and enjoy the game. So this is a really interesting thing because here I am learning that life is not about enjoyment. It's about being in the right place at the right time and fulfilling the duty of that moment for me. So it's not about what I want. It's really interesting. And it's taking me some getting used to this idea. Of course, it would take anybody. Anybody would have to get used to this idea. So the last thing in the world that I can think of at this moment that I really want to do is sit with a crowd of people who are enjoying themselves. In other words, indulging in conversation, indulging in food, indulging in drink, indulging in cigarettes, indulging in whatever they're indulging in. And there was over 8,000 people there. So it was the last thing that I had. I mean, sports, I am not a person who really enjoys sports. I mean, I can get into it at some point, but anyway. So here we are sitting here, and this ball game also promises to be utterly and completely boring because it's a minor leagues. It's the most minor of the minor leagues team, and as the team is out on the practice field, and Brian says to me, well, you can kind of see that these guys are not really professional athletes because they're just out of shape. And you could kind of see that. But then the next thing that happened that was really interesting was that Brian couldn't get me into the buffet. Actually, he was only going because it was a free buffet. So for him, it was like free food with a free baseball game thrown in to boot. And the thing that he was most excited about was the fireworks at the end. So for him, it was the fireworks and the free food, and he was also not interested in the baseball, but we were hanging around for the baseball just because of the rest of it. It all went together. So, but something really interesting happened. Really interesting. In order to describe that, I have to digress and go back to something that happened years ago in India with Sri Atmananda. We were in the field in the small farmhouse, and there were some workers who had come to help us to get plots ready to grow vegetables. And what we were doing was we were turning over the soil, which what you do is you turn over the soil multiple times. In other words, you let the weeds come up, so all of the seeds that are in the soil germinate, sprout, the weeds come up, and then you have workers turn the soil. And you do that a couple of times. And each time they do it, they dig a little deeper, and it's good for the soil. And at the same time, we had a big pile of, like, couple of cartloads of goat manure, I think it was, brought in from one of the villages, and we were turning that into the soil. So goat manure is like 10 times more powerful than cow manure, and if you have to turn it into the soil and let it sit in the soil, otherwise it's too much for them. So we were turning this goat manure into the soil. Now, there were a couple of girls, young girls, who had insisted that they wanted to help us and work with us, but they were the kind of young women, they were very headstrong. And they didn't want to do anything that we told them to do. They had their own ideas. So Swamiji was standing there, and these two young girls were bringing the goat manure on these. They used these steel bowls and put it on their head, and then dumping the goat manure onto the field. But they were dumping it in the wrong places. They were dumping it like on the sides, and anyway. And Swamiji was trying to tell them, first of all, they didn't speak English, they spoke only Tamil. They had their own idea about what they were doing, and they weren't following directions, and they didn't look like they really wanted to follow directions. And Swamiji started to tell them what to do, but they weren't listening. Then he started to do something to direct the energy, and the girls started to do what he wanted them to do, but without him telling them. And the whole time he was doing that, he was saying to me, now what is that man doing? What is that man doing? And he was talking about himself, because the whole time he was showing me something, but I didn't understand anything about what was going on.